Support for The Art of Sway and all the other shows on the Marketing Podcast Network is provided by Memento. If you have your own podcast, you know producing it is half the battle. Promoting it is the other half. What if you could upload your episode, video or audio, and have AI pull out the best moments to use in social media promotions? You can with Memento. Upload the video or audio, review the recommended clips, click a couple of buttons, customize the colors and fonts, and hit save. Instant Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, Facebook or LinkedIn posts, all with video or audio embedded for dynamic promotions that drive people to the episode. And the AI kicks out show notes, transcripts, and even social media captions. All you do is review and post. Go check it out. MPN listeners can try it for free at bit.ly/MomentoMPN. That's bit.ly, bit.ly/MomentoMPN. Welcome to The Art of Sway, the podcast that uncovers the power of influence and its impact on all areas of our lives. I'm your host, Danielle Wiley. Each week, we'll explore the many facets of influence through candid conversations with industry insiders, from brand marketers to social workers, educators, leaders, and more. Let's dive in. The Pop Culture Preservation Society is a podcast dedicated to preserving all the pop culture nuggets of our Gen X childhoods. From the Bee Gees to the Brady Bunch, Schoolhouse Rock to 17 Magazine, and including conversations with Gen X heroes like Melissa Gilbert, Christopher Atkins, and an upcoming chat with Sean Cassidy, their episodes cover all the moments that defined so many of us growing up. Carolyn, Kristin, and Michelle, your pop culture preservationists, crack open your childhood and provide a respite from modern-day stresses with their fun walks down memory lane, bringing you joy, comfort, and endless laughs through these formative memories and shared experiences. I knew this conversation was going to be fun before I even plugged in my mic, but even my high expectations were blown away. Talking about 70s and 80s pop culture nostalgia with this trio of smart women was an absolute blast. Had I not had other meetings booked after the recording, I could have talked to them for hours. Please enjoy this walk down memory lane. Thank you again for coming on. I think I told you in my email, I found you guys through your Instagram first and then realized there was this whole amazing podcast behind the scenes. And so, yeah, was a fan of yours and then reached out. So it's a double extra pleasure.
Thank you. That's the social media feed is the creativity of Michelle's brain.
Yes.
Like she's on that 24/7.
It's so good.
It's a lot, but I enjoy it. It's really fun to post daily Gen X memories. And that's actually how we've gotten a lot of our listeners. And that is kind of, the method to our madness right there. But we also totally understand some people just like social media and we wanted this to be a whole society of, nostalgia. So I'm glad that you love it and I'm glad you enjoy it. Thank you.
Yeah. So before we jump in, I can just go down a total rabbit hole of nostalgia and I'm trying to hold myself back.
It's our favorite thing. We're here for it. Come on.
But why don't we just start, just if you guys can kind of share the origin story of Pop Culture Preservation Society and how you met each other and what inspired you to create this community that I've come to love and hopefully all of our listeners do.
Yeah, well, so I'm Michelle, and I met Carolyn and Kristin when I joined their writing group in March of 2019. So we've only known each other for 4 years, which comes as a surprise to a lot of our listeners. A lot of them say it feels like when they listen to us, they feel like we've been friends for decades. Carolyn and Kristin had known each other, you guys, maybe a year and a half, 2 years prior to that. So it's been about 6 years they've known each other and 4 years for all three of us. But so among other things, like I said, we're writers. And in the summer of 2020, I was writing an article for an online publication called The Girlfriend. And it was about fangirling after 50. So I just casually reached out to Carolyn and Kristin to see if they'd do a call with me so I could maybe get a good soundbite for my article. We weren't even super close friends yet, but I knew.
We had just met.
Well, it had been about a year. It had been about a year and a half, but I knew that they, like me, were fangirls because in the spring of 2019, they had gone to see Sean Cassidy in his first concert in Santa Barbara, California. And I was wildly
Love
envious
it.
of that and that's when we had first become friends. So I was still the new girl. I didn't know, I didn't know them well enough to say, I want to come too. This sounds awesome.
You get left out of the.
Yeah. So, but I knew that, I knew we had like minds, right? So I called them in August of 2020, and the three of us had about a 2-hour conversation about all the things we remembered and loved from our childhoods in the 70s. We started with crushes and we just kind of flew from there. And remember, this is in August of 2020. So we are craving connection. We're craving joy. Right. And as we wrapped up the phone call, we were all commenting on how much fun it had been and just sharing all the things we had all experienced at the same time. And Carolyn just kind of casually throws out, you guys, I'm going to start a podcast and talk about this. And I don't even care if anyone listens. And we just were sort of like, okay, sure. Everybody's starting a podcast, right? In 2020. Right. But these memories and this nostalgia, it had lit such a spark of joy in the three of us. And we thought we bet it would for others as well. And it has.
Yeah, it's been amazing to see this journey unfold. Honestly, it was that rush of dopamine after we'd had that initial 2-hour conversation where I was like, again, I didn't care if anyone listened because how I felt was so great. But then we thought, I wonder if other people would feel this way. So just like Kristin or Michelle just said, I just said, you guys are doing this with me. I announced it at writing group so they couldn't really back out. And we went on this journey, which I have to tell you, we knew absolutely nothing going into this. I like to say that I use GarageBand for editing because I do all the edits. And I had always deleted GarageBand off my computer on my Mac. It's like, I don't have a band in my garage. I don't need GarageBand. There it goes. Now it's like my best friend. And so, what I think the three of us have learned is that it's never too late to try something new. We are all in our 50s. We did not grow up with technology. We have taught ourselves what we are doing. And that in itself is a dopamine rush. Like when I do my stuff on GarageBand and I take things out and I edit and, oh my gosh, it sounds like, there wasn't even a whole section I took out there. Or I put in clips of music. I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds really professional. It's a thrill. It's a joy. And I swear I feel younger today doing this stuff than I might have felt 10 years ago. It is never too late.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm so glad that you guys met each other because the content you put out is just so much fun. And so because we're an influencer marketing agency, we kind of talk about nostalgia just for the power of it and how it can kind of reach people and bring them out and generate so much engagement. It works really, really well for our clients. So we kind of look at it almost like from an not educational, but like looking at it kind of like philosophically and like, what is this going to do for our clients versus just that this feels good to me personally. What do you think is so powerful about nostalgia? Like, why do you think, and maybe this is just kind of your personal perspectives on it, since you're like kind of steeped in it so much every day, but what do you think is so, like I saw, I don't know if you guys remember or saw it going around. I'm sure you remember it. The Nestle Alpine, those white chocolate candy bars, the commercial was going around on Instagram a couple of weeks ago, and I had not thought about it since the 80s. And then I literally spent a week walking around my house, like my 17-year-old was ready to kill me. I was like, creamy white.
Yeah.
Welcome to our world.
Yeah. We call that getting Hüsker Düed.
Hüsker Düed. Yeah. It's getting
when you hadn't thought of something for 30 years and then it's put in front of your face and you just go, oh, boom. It's like smacks you in the face.
Right. And that's a lot of the kind of comments we get from people. So in answer to your question about nostalgia, only now have I gone back and researched that there are some powerful, like real benefits to it in our systems, in our emotional systems, in the dopamine rush that we get. It really does increase a sense of well-being and connectedness. And I don't know that we knew that going into it. I mean, for the three of us, but the power of this social media account we have and the podcast has truly blown us away when people, will thank us for, like you just told us about the Alpine candy bar commercial, we'll put something up and someone will say, I haven't thought about this in forever. And they're so excited. And then another person will post an answer to them and they get in their own little conversation. And it just, there's this warm feeling knowing that all of these others experience the same thing at the same time. And, you know, our biggest arguments on the web or on the Instagram account might be Leif Garrett or Sean Cassidy. You know, it's just a place where you can come and feel good. And this nostalgia piece, it's just really hit home at a time when people kind of needed some connectedness, as Michelle just said. When we launched, I mean, we kind of hit a sweet spot and things like that. And I think that helped with the growth initially. But it's just, for us, it feels good. And it was almost affirming to know, like, okay, this is real. What we felt is what all of our listeners and followers are feeling as well.
And I think it also helps people feel relevant, because as you start to get older, there's a day when you realize there are people out there who don't know your references, and that can be kind of scary. And I remember the day I was with my son and I went, my nose, and he didn't know what I was referring to. And it like stopped my heart for a minute. And so when you're then surrounded by people who know that I'm talking about Marsha Brady when the football hit her in the face, I'm like, oh no, it's all right. It's all right. I still have a place in this world. I still have something to contribute. I'm not being forgotten.
I went in to get my haircut a few months ago, and I didn't like the shape of it. And I was trying to explain to him, and he's like 30. I stopped going to him now. You'll see why. But he's like 30 years old. And I was trying to explain, and I was like, it just like, it kind of looks like a manchichi.
Oh, I can see it. I know what you mean.
And he was like, what? And I was like, a manchichi? No. It's like this little, and then I like was digging his hole. I'm like, it's like this little monkey thing with it, like kind of like an afro. And I was like, this is not going well. I'm not explaining.
And then you feel old.
So like, forget you, Ryan. I need a new hairstylist.
Right. Yes, totally.
I do think
okay, you just Hüsker Düed me.
Yeah. Manchichi. I need to post Manchichi soon on social media. Thank you, Danielle.
Yeah.
I do also think there's a distinction when you talk about the power of nostalgia. And one thing that we have to sometimes make clear to our own listeners, but maybe people in our own families, is that this whole podcast and our whole community, our whole social media community, we're not doing this because we all want to be 14 again, or we all want to live in 1978 again, or we all want to live in 1984 again. There's a real distinction. A lot of people get confused when they see us getting so excited. You know, my office right now, I have all my old Fisher Price around me. I have little toys. I have things I found that I had in my childhood. All three of us do. You know, we all have old lunch boxes or things that bring us joy. It's not because we want to play with those again necessarily, or we want to be that little kid again. It's because remembering those simpler times and just remembering the moments that we had with, kissing the poster of Sean Cassidy on our walls goodnight, or playing with the Fisher Price castle or whatever, it just sparks so much joy in us. And that's what our community tells us. And we get so many, DMs and emails and thank yous. Everything from an episode reminded us about someone they've just recently lost this past year, especially during COVID. We had a lot of those. Thank you so much for the Barry Manilow episode. I sing Barry Manilow with my grandma all the time, and I just lost her. And this episode, made me have such great remember those times again. So you see, there's like there's a distinction of not wanting to live in that time, right, but just be reminded of how those things made us feel.
Mm-hmm. Reminders of our own purity, of our own innocence.
Yep. My sewing kit is in my old caboodle.
Oh, I love a caboodle.
That's really cute.
Yes.
Took your hot rollers out. Put your.
But doesn't it make you just gives a smile, brings a smile?
Yeah,
to
and
your
it's
face
just
when
like
you
I
see
love,
that caboodle,
like and it's turquoise and pink, of course, and yeah.
Of course.
And you like that kid, right? Like it reminds me that kid that I was when I was 12. I like her.
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah.
So, you're talking about like starting to feel irrelevant, and that's like a perfect segue to my next question. So, I mean, we've all seen the jokes about Gen X being forgotten, and like you'll see some post about generations and they go right from boomer to millennial, and like it's obvious it's a thing, but like what the heck? Do you guys have a theory as to
I have
why?
feelings. Yeah.
Kristen has feelings.
I have
Kristen
big
has
feelings
big
about
feelings.
it. And I have this argument with my son all the time because he's like, people don't do that. I'm like, people do. My people do. Am I not people? Like, do I not count?
Yeah.
He has to be reminded that I too and my people are people. But we have to go back to the original name for our generation. We were the latchkey kids, right?
Yeah.
We were the first generation in which most of our mothers worked, and childcare wasn't really a thing. So we got our keys and we wore them around our necks. We let ourselves in. We ate Cheetos and we watched Mike Douglas, right? We were the first generation where half of us came from divorced households, and we were depending on just one parent instead of two. Some of us felt abandoned by the other parent. Our parents were really focused on themselves. Sometimes that was because of survival. Sometimes that's because they were from the me generation, even though they didn't have to be hippies to be part of the me generation. That just seeped into the culture, right?
Yeah.
And even on a larger scale, we were the first generation not to revere or respect or feel taken care of by our elected leaders, because the very first person we remember is Richard Nixon. And so for our parents, that person would have been Kennedy or Eisenhower.
Right.
These people are watching out for us. No, they're not watching out for us. We're on our own. and then as we grew up, we graduated from high school and we graduated from college in a recession. There were no jobs. There was nothing. And we didn't look to our parents to be that safety net for us. We just took care of it on our own. And maybe we graduated and we took jobs that really didn't live up to our dreams because we needed to pay the bills. We had to be pragmatic, and that's not sexy. And so we get ignored in favor of the generations who had the luxury. It's a luxury to dream big. It really is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, we latchkey kids grew up to be helicopter parents. So, like, compensating much?
I feel like I didn't. My son just told me yesterday that he doesn't feel like I was because I.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm glad you worked. You weren't always in my business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. We need to find that happy medium.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I like that. I like that explanation. I mean, it definitely rings true.
Mm-hmm.
So on this podcast, we talk a lot just about like all areas of influence, and we talk to influencers and influencer managers and people who exert their influence in other ways. Like we've talked to filmmakers and people who've started nonprofits. But it's basically all about how influence surrounds us everywhere. So we obviously, thank God, didn't have social media when we were growing up. But like, who do you think our influencers were?
I mean, for sure, TV commercials and magazine ads, they were the original influencers, right? We were very influenced by magazine ads. Like for the three of us, it would have been maybe ads in 17 magazine for Esprit or Candies or Kissing Potion or Love's Baby Soft. By the way, those ads, oh my gosh, shockingly
very bad.
Terrible now. But we all get a big laugh out of them now, but so awful and inappropriate. Anyway, even celebrity magazines like Tiger Beat were influencing us. You know, we're looking to our celebrities much like kids are looking to the celebrities now to influence them. But we certainly were, you know, they're wearing cool clothes or whatever. But I think I'd also say places like the mall. You know, back in the 70s and 80s, we would go get dropped off at the mall for like
hours,
an entire weekend.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Days.
Talk about being forgotten. We'll see you tomorrow night. But, you know, we'd go to the mall and we wandered all day long in the mall. And maybe we only had $5 bill with us. So what are we doing? We're looking in the stores and we're looking in the windows, and we're also looking at all the kids around us who also have gotten dropped off at the mall all day. Mm-hmm. And we're also noticing about what they're wearing and what are they doing. And, you know, if they're drinking an Orange Julius, I'm maybe feeling like, well, after, you know, 3 weekends of seeing everybody drink Orange Julius, I need to go drink Orange Julius. I don't like Orange Julius, but I'm going to go drink an Orange Julius, you know. So I would also argue that maybe, places. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think kind of to your point of watching what other people are doing, I can speak for myself that my peers. I just wanted to fit in so much in middle school and high school. So what were they wearing? Okay, those specific Adidas, those specific Levi's cords, that kind of thing. So for me, there was a lot of peer pressure, I guess, to wear the right thing, and that's who really influenced my choices. I think
it was a lot more work.
Oh God.
Like I remember in high school, like I grew up on Long Island, so it was all about going to the diner, and we had 2 diners in town, and we'd go to one and see whose cars were in the parking lot, and then we go to the other one and see whose cars were in the parking lot, and then we go check the other one just to make sure no cute boys showed up, and and we would just drive back and forth, and now you just pull up Snapchat maps or whatever and see where people were, right?
God, seriously. Yeah. And you might not even want to go to the place where they are. You might just meet in that digital space where you had to go to the diner. So the diner was your place of influence. That's where everything was happening. And I really miss magazines. I really, really do, for so many reasons. But when I was a kid, my closet doors were covered with things that I had torn out of magazines. Some of those things were ads. Some of those things, might have been clothes. It might have been just somebody who I thought was cute. It might have been cosmetics. But that was how I thought I was decorating my room. But really, it was a wall of influence.
Gosh, that's a good point, Kristin. Yeah, I would cut out, I would make those on my bulletin board, whereas it could have been the girl with the kissing potion around her neck. But that was cut out and stuck on my bulletin board. But you're right.
We all had collages, right?
It was like a hard copy of Instagram on my wall, if you think about it.
So who did you guys have on your wall? Because we all had people.
Carolyn's is the best.
In terms of crushes, I had Jimmy McNichol posters all over my wall. Now, Jimmy McNichol is the brother of Kristin McNichol, but in my opinion, he is a star in his own right. So above my headboard in my bedroom in middle school were probably 9 or 10 Jimmy McNichol posters, kind of in a semicircle over my head. And right in the middle was a crucifix. So I had Jimmy and Jesus looking out over me. And we have proof of that. My mother actually took a picture of me once in sleeping with that in the background. And we've actually shared that on Instagram and stuff because it reflects exactly what was influencing my life.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Well, and
Jesus
Danielle, who else you got to share that with recently?
Well, yeah. So this podcast has brought us some amazing opportunities. And a couple of months ago, we were asked to help MC a celebrity, basically teen idol dinner party in California. And Jimmy McNichol was one of the celebrity guests.
Oh, my goodness.
At the dinner party. We sat at Kristin McNichol's table, but he was at the next table over. And I got to introduce him. And I got to show him that photo. And he was then showing it around. It was just this full circle surreal moment. I mean, to your point before, Kristin, it's my little self and my big lady self at the same moment having this, weird full circle opportunity to chat with this guy who I kissed every night before I went to bed. And that was really fun. That was really fun.
What about you guys, Kristin and Michelle, who were on your walls?
Go ahead, Michelle.
Well, from 1978 to about 1981, it was all Scott Baio. That was it. Just wallpaper. Basically, it was a Scott Baio wallpaper. And I also loved Kristin McNichol, so I had posters of her. And then I moved into, because your crushes evolve as you get older, right?
Yeah.
So then in about 1981, I didn't like Scott Baio anymore. And then it moved into the Brat Pack and specifically Andrew McCarthy. But I do remember having a lot of things like Molly Ringwald posters. I can still picture the 17 magazine cover with Molly Ringwald on it. I probably had ripped that off and put it up. And then in about 1983, it was all Duran Duran. It was all Duran Duran and Simon Le Bon because you know what? They were men. They were sexy British men. And about that time, I'm 14 and my crushes have evolved to where I need a man.
Not a boy.
Right?
And Kristin, I'm going to let you go, but I have an Andrew McCarthy story. So he was on my wall. I loved him.
Yes,
and we were going to Hawaii with my whole family a few years ago. And actually it's about 10 years now. And we're sitting waiting for changing planes in Dallas. And so we're sitting at the gate in Dallas. And he sat down right next to me at the gate.
No.
So he's like 6 inches from me on my left, and my
God.
daughter, so she's 21 now, so she's probably like 11 or 12 at the time, and she's to my right. And I start hyperventilating, and I turned to her and I said, he was on my wall. And she was like, what? I said, he was on my wall.
Oh my God.
What are you talking about?
I have goosebumps up the back of my skull right now, Danielle, imagining that moment for you. What did you do? Tell us. You got to keep.
I did nothing. I was a chicken. I didn't say anything to him, and he hasn't aged super well. He has no butt at all. Like,
well, I don't think he did then either. I thought he's aged
Maybe
kind of well because I follow him on Instagram, and I think he's aged. I think he looks pretty good. But I agree with you. I would have been so in that moment. I'm going to say the wrong thing. You don't want to seem fangirly. You don't want to. I would have just been like,
and he was traveling alone with his 2 kids. He was taking them to Hawaii by himself, and they were like, he seemed like an exhausted dad. Like he was a little too real.
Write him a note. Yeah. Check the box. Do you like me? Yes or no?
Or do you like me?
Do you like me?
Yeah. Please check the box.
Yeah.
I had the Sean Cassidy poster that came in his first album, which had "To Do Run Run" on it. And then I had pages that I had torn out of Tiger Beat of all of the Bee Gees, and they circled my bed. And then I had the Andy Gibb shadow dancing poster, the one in the red silky shirt that is so sexy. And when my grandma walked in and saw it, she was like, "Oh, he sure likes his chest hair, doesn't he?" And I was like, "Grandma, I don't hate it. I don't hate the chest hair."
Too funny.
Because I, like you, Michelle, I was growing up.
Yeah.
Sean Cassidy, smooth chest. And I grew up a little bit, chest hair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See,
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, my daughter was totally baffled by this whole, like, she's always loved Justin Bieber, even now. So, like, she's definitely had obsessions, but it's like, it's different. I remember I got her like a full-size cardboard cutout of him because I thought, like, I'm an 80s kid. Like, you need a picture of this. You love this guy. You must have him in your room. And she hated it. She thought it was creepy. She didn't want it. Like, we got rid of the Biebs.
Interesting.
Wow.
Oh my God.
But I'm just wondering, like, do you think that, like, because they're interacting with them on this smaller screen and it's like they don't have it's just a very different, like, I feel like the level of obsession is a lot different now than it was for us. Support for The Art of Sway and all the other shows on the Marketing Podcast Network is provided by Memento. If you have your own podcast, producing it is half the battle. Promoting it is the other half. What if you could upload your episode, video or audio, and have AI pull out the best moments to use in social media promotions? You can with Memento. Upload the video or audio, review the recommended clips, click a couple of buttons, customize the colors and fonts, and hit save. Instant Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, Facebook or LinkedIn posts, all with video or audio embedded for dynamic promotions that drive people to the episode. And the AI kicks out show notes, transcripts, and even social media captions. All you do is review and post. Go check it out. MPN listeners can try it for free at bit.ly/MomentoMPN. That's bit.ly, bit.ly/MomentoMPN.
The phenomenon still exists, but the vehicles for getting there are so vastly changed. Just like you said, she can look at him every single day on her phone, and so she'd be like, "Why do I need this cardboard thing?" It's different. And I just watched the Pretty Baby documentary, the documentary about Brooke Shields, and she has a great quote that speaks to this. Somebody asked the question, "Why were you so popular?" And she was like, "There just weren't that many people." Right? We had like four TV stations. You can only get so many people on 4 TV stations. And so I just floated to the top. Now they have so many sources.
Yeah.
And they're coming at them from everywhere. They're bombarded with information. And it's all individualized. It's all based on the algorithm, which means there's less of a culture of collective crushing, which is kind of part of the fun of having a crush.
Yeah.
I mean, we all had Donnie and Marie. We all watched Donnie and Marie together and would go to school the next day and say, "Did you like I'm a little bit country, I'm a little bit rock and roll. We all knew what we were talking about. Now I think it might be a little bit lonely.
There's no events. Like I remember like when
No.
Sha Na was on the Muppet Show, like that was the biggest night of my life. Like, oh my God, Sha Na is on the, like my worlds are colliding.
Say you're a Gen Xer, Danielle, without saying you're a Gen Xer.
Love it. When Sha Na was on the
I agree
show.
though, Kristin, to your point, it's so true because I have my younger daughter who is about to be 22. She, I can't keep up with how many obsessions she has. It's everybody from people she's crushing on to musical. But when I'll say, I have never heard of that person, where do you, well, that person is famous because of TikTok, but this person's a YouTuber, but this person's on that show I watch on some streaming service, but this person's on a show I watch on something online I've never even heard of. So you're so right. They're getting these people that they can admire and crush on from everywhere. And, we're not sitting here saying it's wrong. We're saying it's different. And then we can also, we can live in the fact that we think ours was better, but everybody can think that. But everybody can think that. But I would have been overwhelmed by that much gorgeous input and talented input coming into me. Right.
There are too many things to choose from that. How do you even settle on one? It's paralyzing, but the need still remains, right?
Yeah,
right. The need to have that first extremely safe relationship with someone who's not going to break up with you. That's a really good training ground for being in love. So I wonder if there's going to be some fallout for our kids in the way they approach IRL relationships, because they're not getting the same training that we did.
I wonder,
curious.
like I see with my son who's 17, like he was dating a girl last summer and I made the stupid mistake of calling her his girlfriend. And I got a whole lecture about they're not into labels and it's not so I kind of feel like that's the reaction, right? Like, when there is so much out there, like you can't, it becomes impossible to label anything because they've kind of been adrift, I guess.
Yeah. Who's your crush? Well, I want to label it.
Yeah. I mentioned the Nestle commercial that I've become newly obsessed with. It's great. Have you guys seen it recently?
Yeah. I think it was going around Instagram a week ago.
It was going around Instagram. It's like, and people sit, when people, what was it? Something about the 80s being dramatic. And it looks like a romance novel cover, the whole commercial. But TV commercials, and you mentioned it before, like it was such a huge part of our lives. Like, do you think brands have the same influence on us now that we're not seeing? Now they're on like TikTok, like you're interacting with Duolingo on TikTok, right? Like, it's not true.
Right. I don't think it's the brands that are influencing us as much as the people that are hawking the brands. So if Katie Couric has some great new, moisturizer she's using, I love Katie Couric. I might go check out that moisturizer, or I did check it out, and it's on my nightstand. Or Brooke Shields has some wine or something that she's promoting. So it's now I guess, and that's maybe why they're sometimes called influencers, but it's these people I respect. And then if they share a brand that they like, that's where I'm more likely to be influenced versus, we just don't even see the TV commercials as much anymore. There aren't even TV commercials unless we watch network, which
I think just for sports. Like the only time I see TV commercials now it's when I'm watching sports and it's sporting all event. Cars and insurance companies. Nothing. Certainly not Nestle caliber.
There's too many brands though. There's too many brands. Back when we were growing up, there just weren't as many. There might have been, I can maybe think of 4 different maybe brands of tennis shoes that I was choosing between when I'd go get my new school shoes. There's just too many. And, like what Carolyn said about Katie Couric, I can be looking for face cream and I can go, I can say that to somebody in my house. And then the next day I have 30 ads on my Instagram feed for all these face creams. Right. And I don't know which one to choose. They all sound good. But if, Reese Witherspoon tells me she uses this one and I admire Reese Witherspoon and think, wow, she's almost my age and her face looks really good. I will go spend the money on Reese Witherspoon's entire line, which I have. It's not her line, but it's what she uses. So I think to Carolyn's point now, especially for our age, we're too inundated by the too many brands of everything.
Yeah.
Shoes, clothes, handbags, nail polish, face creams, teeth whitener, under eye bags, eyelash serum. Aren't you? You're welcome, everyone, right now, because everybody's Instagram feeds are about to be inundated with all those things.
For us, we had we had the Neutrogena bar or Noxzema. Like you had two choices to wash your face.
You had Series and 1006.
So now I think with our age mates, we're almost too baffled by it. We just sort of pick someone that we're like, I know you. I really feel like I respect your opinion. Yes, you're probably just getting paid a lot to do it, but I feel like you're sincere and I trust you. So that's what I'm going to do. So that's how we're being influenced. It's not as much, like Carolyn said, it's not as much the brand, it's the person.
And that makes brand loyalty kind of difficult, because that means if Reese comes on with something else, you're going to start using that. You're not loyal to the brand, you're loyal to Reese.
It is possible. Yeah, I do love Reese.
So of all, we're like, I could talk to you guys forever, but I feel like I have to kind of...
We can move on.
We got to close it out at some point. So of all the podcast episodes that you guys have produced, what would you say is your... I'll tell you my favorite of yours. I love the 1983 music episode.
We do too. We love that.
I love that. I was like making dinner one night while listening to it and had the best time. And I listened to 83 playlists the whole rest of the week.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's nice to hear. We love the music ones as well. Those are really fun for us to prep for.
The music ones are always our most popular ones. Yeah. It's, of course, as you would imagine, it's super, super hard to pick 1 or 5 or 10 that are our favorites, because we've had how many episodes?
115, I think, by now. 115.
Yeah,
we're on 117 this week or something. Yeah.
But we do all have ones that are more important to us than others. For me, I think if I had to choose a favorite, it would be our episode about Free to Be You and Me. Because I know, look at your face, right? It dug up something that was so buried in so many.
Because that's when we were really young. Like really that's like a younger memory, right?
Very little. Like and when it was unearthed, it just these people just exploded with joy because they hadn't thought of it for so long. And that conversation let us fangirl really hard about all the songs that we loved and we knew by heart. But it also let us pick apart each song and skit and discover what incredible influence that whole album had on it. It actually had a purpose. And it helped us think about who we were and how we viewed our mothers and what we wanted to be when we grew up. And so it was a joyful conversation. It was also a very serious conversation.
Yeah. Well, I loved that episode as well, Kristin. And my favorite would have to be probably a day in the life of a 70s fifth grader that we did. Because each of us described what a day would be like when we were in fifth grade. And personally, it was great to get to know a little bit more about my co-hosts, but it was also really cool to kind of go back and relive a day in my fifth grade life and just remember what I was doing and how I felt. And it, again, was like a touchstone of, oh my gosh, you turned out okay. Little fifth grade Carolyn, it all is going to work out for you. And really, we thought this was going to kind of be a lighthearted stroll down memory lane. And it really got deep and meaningful. And we got a lot of responses from listeners about what that episode meant to them. And those are the kind of things that are really special, especially the unexpected. Again, we thought it was going to be kind of fun and funny, and it was fun. But yet it touched something in each of us, I think, and in our listeners that we didn't expect, but that was beautiful. So that's why that's one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, that one took a real surprisingly poignant and emotional turn for the three of us. It did become a little bit like therapy. I really love the 2-part episode we did about a year ago on the Carpenters. And I've always loved the Carpenters. All three of us have. So we came to these episodes as huge fangirls, right? But I was just really proud of how we honored both their story, even the messy parts of their story, and their music, and our love for both. So our first episode is really their story. And we touch on all of it. And we just, we treat it with a lot of respect. We treat it with a lot of love and care. And It's fun and funny. I love it. And then part 2 of our Carpenters episodes is just basically a playlist of our favorite Carpenter songs, the story behind them, why we love them. So that one, it was just so much fun too. And I think we do that a lot on the podcast, is that we'll take a topic, any topic. It could be Battle of the Network Stars or After School Specials. And it's not just, this is what we loved about it. Wasn't it fun? We always have connections to our own child selves, which lets the listener connect those things to their child selves. But also, we do a lot of research because we're all writers, right? And we're also all we all have degrees in education in some way. So we love to do research. So we also like to inform, and we like to learn new things about the topic that we're discussing. So our listeners really do enjoy that all of our episodes are fun, funny, but they also are a little bit educational.
Yeah. Great. So this season, and one of the reasons I reached out to you guys, so it's season 3 and it's all women who are 50 plus, because I'm turning 50 this year. So it seemed like a good way to celebrate it. And I'm actually very excited about it. But we like to ask all of our guests the same closing question. So for this season, the question we're asking is, what woman had the most influence on you in your life?
Well, I'm going to answer first, and I'm going to say that answer that probably a lot of people are going to say, but I maybe wouldn't have answered this the same way a few years ago. But it is my mom. And I think because of this podcast, I've had the opportunity, again, like I've said throughout this episode, to go back and revisit moments and memories from my childhood. And all of a sudden, that mom that I thought was maybe being really mean was really standing up for herself. I was maybe embarrassed by her when I was 11 years old, but now I look back and I think those moments stuck with me as I became an adult. And it's been really fun. Our relationship has just really blossomed because of this podcast, because I'll check in with her about a memory, or I'll, call her and apologize for something I might have done or said. And she is 82 right now. And probably the biggest influence that she's ever had on me, she's having right now, because this woman recently left the Catholic Church. I just want you to know she'd been Catholic for her whole life. It just wasn't what she wanted. She was willing, and this would have never happened to her before, but she was willing to look at something new, do some research, be open to new ideas. And she's 82. And I'm thinking, oh, it means you're not stuck in your ways. You can still learn. You can still make this major life change. It's never too late. And I respect her so much because of that. And obviously she influenced me a lot during my childhood, but it's almost now that I am seeing her as this adult woman who is just never stops growing, I guess is what I'd like to say about her. So it's
evolving.
Been a special.
Yeah, she's still evolving, right?
Yeah, she still is.
Love it.
So that's who I would say, my mother.
Well, most of my I have
Fabulous.
Danielle, we have 3 wildly different answers here. So I'm going to follow up. I'm going to follow up Carolyn's very sweet tribute to her mother by telling you that for most of my adolescence, I wanted to be Mary Hart. Now, Mary Hart was she was Regis Philbin's first co-host in 1981, but then she went on to co-host Entertainment Tonight for 185 years. I think I started the John Tesh years with her, but Entertainment Tonight, that was my dream, to be Mary Hart. And I just felt like that was the best job. She talked about pop culture. She got to talk to celebrities. She got to talk about celebrities, about pop culture. That was a show that was on my TV every night, just on while I'm making dinner, all the way through when I was a young mother, basically. And, what are the odds that after I turned 50 and we started this podcast, I am in a way Mary Hart. Right. We're talking to celebrities on our podcast. I'm having dinner with Christy McNichol. I'm talking to Christopher Atkins on the podcast. We're talking about pop culture. I have co-hosts. They're my John Tesh and my Mark Stein, and my Bob Cohen. I just feel like that is something that just makes me I'm just in shock. And that I finally, after 50, you just never, like Carolyn said way back at the beginning, just, you know what, ladies, life can begin. You just never know what you can do after 50. I was 51 when I met these three. So like we're, all of this happened after 50 for us, the friendship, the podcast, all of it. So it's just crazy. So yeah, don't go to sleep, everyone.
I kind of feel like life begins after 50 for women.
Yeah, I'm starting to realize that.
We're inviting you in. Come on in.
Come to the
dark
dark
side. Really fun on this side. I know. So I know when you ask this question, you're probably thinking, you mean a real woman? Like what real woman influenced us? But the truth is we got a lot of guidance from our pop culture icons too. And I am in no way, I can't emphasize this enough, I am in no way a Star Wars person. Like I don't even know the names of the movies that came after Star Wars, but Princess Leia will bring me to tears. She was the only woman in that movie. I'm sitting in the theater watching it in 1977, like the whole world, just sort of in awe of what I was watching. And she's the only girl on the screen. And she was both a princess and a badass, even though George Lucas wouldn't let her wear underwear. But still, and the last movie that Carrie Fisher was in before she died, and again, I don't know the name of it because I'm not a Star Wars person. When she comes on the screen as the 55-year-old General Leia Organa, I start blubbering like a baby. And she looked 55, which I really appreciated. That just made my heart explode, that they didn't think that they somehow had to clean her up to be presentable, to be in a movie. It's just her whole role being a princess to a general, that she has this lifespan, that she's the really the sole woman until we got the other girl. I'm sorry, I don't know because I'm not a Star Wars person. It's just very meaningful to me. She is, well, you can see it right here, right? Like her image to me is iconic.
Love it. Love it. Well, this was everything I expected and more. And I thank you guys again so much for coming on. This was delightful.
Thank you for having us.
So much.
Yeah,
this was a blast.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Please check back next Monday for a new episode featuring marketing conversations through the lens of influence. I am your host, Danielle Wiley, and this is The Art of Sway.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Joe Singer and Tom Stallings host a great podcast called Take a Breath. Joe, tell us what you talk about on the show.
Yeah, so Take a Breath is a podcast for people who are really trying to build something valuable in their lives, whether it's a business or a marriage or whatever it is you're trying to do. We help you with some hacks to build your best life.
Wow. Where can people subscribe?
You can find us on marketingpodcasts.net as well as mergeanalytics.com. And you can also find us on LinkedIn and YouTube.
And wherever you get your podcasts. So go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.